Guys hear us?
This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, I guess so, maybe.
So, like Mindy said, we're going to be talking about coping with holiday sadness today. So, holidays can be super stressful. I feel like there's a lot of stuff always going on. You have all these social gatherings. You're like, do I have enough time for everything? The financial pressure of everything, wanting to buy like the perfect gift. Is my kid gonna like this? Are they not? And then also for people living with mental health conditions, it can definitely trigger some difficult emotions for them, and maybe make some stuff harder for them as well.
One of the things also I just want to add, because I used to work in schools for a long time, I think a lot of times we assume that kids are really excited to be off of school. And in reality, for some kids, that's not the case. School is their safe place, and they like going to school. They like interacting with their friends. For a lot of them who maybe have tumultuous home situations, school is the place where they feel like they have some control and where they feel like they can um, be themselves and not have to be on edge about maybe family situations that are going on. So some of our kids we see a lot of times will be like, oh, aren't you excited to be on a break? But for some kids, they're not, because being at home is actually more stressful from being at than being at school. So that's something to think about as well, in working with students, or even working with, even with your own children. Sometimes that break from a schedule is really hard for them also.
Yeah, and some people, their lives aren't always the greatest at home. So for them, school is that kind of outlet, that safe place for them. Um,
So one of the big things, I know that the holiday season can be very busy and crazy with a lot going on, and maybe you're traveling, and maybe you're having family come to you and you're running from activity to activity. I know that being having kids in schools, especially if you have kids in, one in elementary, one in a middle, maybe one in a high school, there's all kinds of special celebrations, and maybe from your church or temple as well, and things going on. But it's really important to also take the time to pay attention to your child and what is happening with them, because a lot of times kids don't express how they're feeling, or don't know how to express how they're feeling, but it shows up in other ways. So if you have a child that is very tearful, and it seems like for no good reason, or not a big reason even, um, that could be a sign that they are really struggling and they just don't know how to express how they're feeling. Maybe more anxiety type behaviors, nail biting, hair twirling. Sometimes kids will pick at their skin. Um, Sometimes stuttering could also be a sign that only comes out when kids are feeling really anxious. Maybe they even have physical complaints. Stomach aches are a big part of this. That's what we hear a lot of people, kids complaining about stomach aches or headaches. It just might mean that all of this is way too much for them. Sometimes we see regression, maybe for a very young child who's been potty trained, and all of a sudden they start wetting themselves, or maybe even a little bit of an older kid who starts doing some bedwetting, maybe using baby talk. Things like that are all signs of regression, in the fact that your child might be struggling with feeling anxious or nervous about what's going on around them. Withdrawing, maybe people are maybe everybody is really excited to be with a family. For some kids, that's just too overwhelming. Um, and so maybe they'll withdraw from situations because it's just too much for them. Or you could also see another change in behavior, which could be acting out behaviors, more aggressive behaviors than they normally exhibit. So you really want to, amongst all the busyness of the holiday season, you also want to try to stay really in tune and in touch with your kids, and what their behavior is. And if you see some type of a change, that could indicate that something's up. And make sure that you talk to your child about it. Offer you kind of bring it up like, hey, I've noticed that you're kind of wanting to stay in your room when we have family or friends over. Is everything okay? Sometimes they feel bad because they know the holidays are supposed to be really fun and really a family time or time with friends or time to do community service or whatever it is. And they feel bad saying something because they don't want to ruin everybody's fun, or they don't want to make their parents stay home from an activity that the parents seem really excited about. But if you approach them and ask them, then they might be a little bit more forthcoming with information.
So things that you could do to help in these situations to help ease that holiday stress are just sticking to a routine. If as much as you can, right? Sometimes during the holidays, yeah, you can't because you have all this other stuff going on. These people are coming over. You have to go here. You have to do that, right? Sometimes you have to pick what is a higher priority, right? Is going to soccer a higher priority, or is going to this party, this family party, more of a priority, right? Also, don't overschedule. Like, you don't need to say yes to every single person that invites you to something. Understand that it can be overwhelming, not just for the kids, but also you. And if they see you're acting like that, then maybe they're going to feel the same way. Talk to kids about the meaning of the holiday so they know what it is really for. Schedule downtime. Make sure that you do have time for you guys all to have some quiet time. So maybe after one party, you kind of schedule like a nap time or quiet time for everybody. When we get home for an hour, 2 hours, whatever, we're all just going to go to our rooms, have that quiet time, do whatever we need to do to kind of wind down. Make sure you're scheduling time for them to be able to be outside and to be able to be active and do those things that they still want to do and see their friends and stuff like that. Managing that sugar intake, I know that can always be a challenge, especially when you have all those cookies and stuff lying around. And sometimes kids are going to sneak stuff. And so just kind of being cautious of what, they are eating, managing how many cookies they're eating and stuff like that. And I mean, I feel like it's okay to have that conversation. Like, you can't have 5 cookies. That's not going to be healthy for you. You can have 2 cookies. Pick which cookies you like. And even, if there's a cookie that you try and you don't like, okay, then maybe we can eat another one. But if you eat a whole cookie, that's not telling me you don't like it, right? That means you probably liked it. Otherwise, you would have only taken like 1 bite, right? Let them know exactly what to expect. So when you're going to somebody's house, I think for kids, it can be difficult because they don't know what to expect. They don't know what this person's rules are. And for me, I have 2 little kids. And so I know how my kids act. I know that they can be crazy sometimes. And so when I'm going to people's houses that don't have kids, I'm very cautious of what things that these people might have in their house that could be breakable. And so I have that conversation with my kids in the car, like, hey, these people don't have kids, they don't have toys, which is why I told you to bring some toys with you. Don't touch their things. They have things that you can break and stuff like that. But also letting other people know what to expect of your child. So letting people know, like, hey, my child's not a hugger. If they don't want to give you a hug, maybe suggest a high five instead. So then that way they can also know, hey, don't try to get my kid to hug you whenever they're just not into that. Like, that's going to make them feel even more uncomfortable. Again, be a good example, set the tone. If they see you're stressed out, that you're freaking out about stuff, then they're going to kind of take that energy from you and feel the same way. Manage those expectations. I feel like a lot of times during the holidays, we can kind of let them get away with a little bit more, but not necessarily everything, right? They still have to have those same rules to be able to still stick to that routine as much as possible. Pick your battles. Some stuff is not worth fighting. If they snuck that 3rd cookie, is it really worth the fight, right? Don't let kids get too hungry or tired. If they need a nap, like I said, schedule that time. Know that this is something that your kid needs. Stick to those family traditions that you have. Those are, again, going to be things that are going to kind of like reflect back on your family. It's going to help them with that routine. With an attitude check, kids will follow your example. So again, if you're setting a bad example, if you're complaining about stuff, then that's probably how they're going to be. If you're traveling, let them bring their toys or pillow or blanket that they feel comfortable with. Again, like I said, I know that when I go to certain people's houses, my kids are not going to have stuff to do. So I make sure to tell them, hey, bring stuff that you want to play with while we are there. Again, don't force your kids to hug people if that's not something that they feel comfortable doing. Find other ways, like, oh, how about we just give a high five, or how about a fist bump or something like that, right? Because I think sometimes with family, they can kind of see it as being disrespectful, like your kid doesn't want to give me a hug, why are they acting like that and stuff. And so I think it's just kind of like, hey, you don't want everybody coming up to you and hugging you, especially if they don't know you, right? So let's just do a high five, fist bump, or whatever. And have foods available for them if they're picky eaters. So like with me, I know that if I'm going somewhere, my older son, he tends to be a lot pickier. So I'm gonna be like, you know what, I'll have him eat before I go, because I know if I get there and I don't have food that he wants to eat, I'm gonna be stressed out the whole time because I'm trying to get him to eat, but he doesn't want to eat any of this food here and he doesn't want to try it. And so kind of knowing that ahead of schedule is also gonna help you with keeping that with keeping your attitude in check, being a good example and stuff like that, because you're going to know, hey, you know what, how about we just eat before this, or even just bring snacks in the car, or bring something that they like. My kid likes mac and cheese, so if I know if I'm going somewhere, and I know maybe we're not going to eat right away, or if I have him eat before it's going to be too soon, I can bring him one of those microwavable mac and cheeses, or I can stop by Chick-fil-A and get him a mac and cheese or whatever it is, on the way there, because I know that's going to be something he's going to want to eat, and that he will like to eat. So just kind of keeping that stuff in mind as you're going around to places, as you're going to do stuff. Again, it's going to help definitely with those tantrums, with those attitudes kids might be starting to have, or those changes in those behaviors. I think my biggest thing is just the expectations, like letting them know what to expect. If they know what to expect and they know what's expected of them, they're going to be a lot more likely to be like, okay, well, I knew this was going to happen. So it's not going to stress them out as much as if it's like a surprise thing happening.
Hungry kids are crabby kids.
Hungry kids are crabby kids. And parents who are trying to get their kids to eat stuff and they're like, no, 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 are also crabby.
Right. All right, so let's talk about teenagers. Some of the stuff that Aida talked about kind of applies to younger kids, although some of that can still very much apply to teenagers as well. My kids are adults now, but my daughter is very much a hangry person. When she gets too hungry,
Same.
ooh, bad news for sure. Yeah, but also things that can cause angst or anxiety for teens during the holiday season: changes in routine. Again, just like with younger kids. The other thing is, a lot of times teenagers make their own holiday type plans. Maybe a friend is hosting a holiday party and it conflicts with a family party. And again, I think that you need to let your teenagers make some choices sometimes on those kinds of things. I think that everybody will be a lot happier. It gives your child some choice and some control in the situation. That may not always be the case, that they can opt out of a family commitment. But if there is a way to make a choice in that where they could spend time with their friends, allow them to do that. I think that that's totally okay to make the holidays the holidays brighter for everyone.
Yeah, and it can even be like a compromising thing. Like, okay, how about we go to this party for an hour and then I'll go drop you off with your friends or whatever. Yeah.
Also, having high expectations is also a good way. Having a high expectation, can cause a lot of anxiety to teens. In terms of behavior, in terms of what you want them to do, that can cause a lot of anxiety. Definitely family issues, whether that be divorce, whether that be a painful association with a death of a parent, a grandparent, a beloved uncle, cousin, whatever. Definitely around holiday time, we see that causing kids some anxiety for sure. The other thing to think about is how school impacts your kid in December. Sometimes kids, I've been going into a lot of high schools lately, and they're telling me that finals are after
Yeah,
the winter
that's what I was
break.
about to
It used to
say.
be that they were before, now they're after. And so sometimes, but even though that's the case, a lot of teachers have really big expectations because they want to finish up the semester. And so they are asking kids to turn in papers or, you know, projects or assignments. And it's like the mad rush to get everything done. And when you also have all these other activities going on, sometimes kids feel like they can't devote enough time to their schoolwork that piles up at the end, or maybe they've missed some homework because they've been sick during the semester. And so their teacher is saying, okay, if you can get everything in by December 20th, I'll count it for your points. And so they're in this mad dash to finish up the semester, and it can be really stressful. The other thing is some kids do and some kids don't. Even though finals are after winter break, some kids want to study and be prepared.
Mhm.
And so they might feel the pressure of that, of studying while they're home for the winter break, when mom and dad said, we have to go here, we have to go there. And they're like, no, I need time to study. So think about that for sure. The other thing for teenagers is that a lot of times they can pick up on financial strain. If a family is struggling financially, even if you don't say anything to your kids pick up on that stuff. I had a situation in my own personal family several years back, many years back when my kids were teenagers, where my husband was out of work. And even though we tried not to stress the kids out with our adult problems, they kind of knew when we had to say no to some things, or when we had to cancel a vacation that we were counting on, or things like that. Kids pick up on that. They pick up on their parents' stress. So make sure that you're kind of addressing that with your child. Certainly, if you don't want to share adult type information, that's always your choice. I respect that for sure. But be open to a conversation with your child if they are feeling stressed out about that. The other thing that we also find with younger kids, but especially with teenagers, is sort of that pressure of what they're going to get for the holidays as compared to their friends. I see a lot of times that come up with when kids are talking at school about the gifts they think that they're going to receive and stuff like that. And other kids who know they're not going to be receiving such extravagant things, that it kind of stresses them out a little bit. And it kind of, they have some feelings about that. So that's definitely another thing to think about.
So again, same thing with teens, just keeping that schedule consistent as much as you can. Like I said, if you're picking between soccer and a party, you have to figure out what is the best one. But also letting your teens pick or plan an activity. Maybe you kind of put that in their hands and say, okay, how about you pick which one you would rather go to or whatever, if they're at the same time or same day. And communicate with them. Let them know what's going on. Let them know, hey, this is why we can't do this, or this is why we can't do that, right? Like Wendy said, sometimes, we don't want to bother them with whatever's going on in our life, what we're dealing with, all that kind of stress, but just letting them know, like, hey, you're fine. We got this. Like, this is not something you have to worry about. If it comes to that point, we will let you know. But right now, it's not a problem that you should be worried about. And stuff like that, and give them some control over their schedule. Like I said earlier, if you're doing a family thing and they want to go be with their friends, say, okay, how about you come to this family thing for an hour, and then I'll go drop you off, and you can do your friend event after that. And so just kind of like giving them that freedom to be able to still do some of those things that they also want to do, and managing gift expectations. So again, I think that this kind of goes back to whatever you're teaching in your home, right? Is it manageable for your 16-year-old to get a brand new Tesla for Christmas, right? If not, then, talk to them about that. Like, these are the things that, we can do, or these are the things that we think is a good gift and stuff like that. And I think that's something to kind of talk about throughout the year, not just right now. So then that way they can have those expectations of like, okay, well, this is what my parents are going to be willing to buy me, or what they feel like is appropriate for me and stuff like that, because I think it can be really difficult. And I'm sure we've all had those times when we thought we were going to get a certain gift and then we got something else. And we were really disappointed, right? And so just kind of talking to them about that, even afterwards, and saying, like, this is why we got you this gift versus the other one. This is why we didn't get you the other gift. And kind of letting them know, like, some things are just not within reach, or some things are just not for kids your age, or whatever the situation is.
One of the things, we didn't have this on here, but one of the things that I just want to add that we always try to do with our kids during the holiday season is some type of giving. We certainly show them that we give monetarily to charities that we feel very much that we want to support, but we also try to do stuff with our kids where we were actually doing things, helping people. They could actually be interactive in a community service situation, which I really feel like helps to help them understand what the season is all about.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a lot of different opportunities. A lot of schools have opportunities for the kids. So for an example, at the school I used to work at, I was in charge of our gift giving project. So rather than just giving money, we would pick something to purchase for the project, and I would actually let my kids go with me shopping and pick something out, whatever the student asked for, if it was an outfit or if it was a game or whatever, I would let them pick it out, like something they would like that they thought this other child would also like, which I think really connects them to the spirit of giving. I think a lot of times we get very much caught up in what am I going to get? What am what's going to be there for me? What am I going to get? I always like to help my kids to understand that we also need to give back as well. And so that's, that I think there's a lot of places that offer opportunities both for teenagers, but also for little kids and families to do together as well.
Yeah.
So.
And I think it can kind of go back to social media too, because when we see people having all these cool things on social media, then our kids are going to be like, oh my God, I want that too, right? My husband told me yesterday he read an article and it said in China, kids were asked what they want to be when they grow up. And the number one thing was an astronaut. Oh. In the US, they asked kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? And their number one thing was an influencer.
Interesting.
And so I think that can kind of go back to managing those gift expectations, because they see all these people have all these cool things online and all this stuff. And I tell kids sometimes, I'm like, you know what, that stuff is edited. Sometimes that's not even theirs. They're borrowing it or they return it or whatever, so it's not always that this really belongs to this person, but we can all make things look great and beautiful on social media, but that doesn't mean that that's really how life is. And so even talking to them about that, I think can definitely help manage those expectations on what they will get for the holidays, or even like in the future and stuff like that for birthdays or anything like that.
All right, so we want to talk a little bit about holidays after divorce, because we know that can be a pretty stressful situation, both for the adults involved and also for the kids involved. So just a couple words of wisdom, and certainly we want to preface this by saying there is absolutely no judgment on anybody in how they choose to handle their own personal family situation. We know that there are many, many, many different family situations going on. So these are very general suggestions. Take what you can from it, fit it into your own personal situation. But we just wanted to kind of throw some stuff out there. We know that a lot of times there can be really complicated feelings surrounding the holidays in a divorce situation. But for your kids' sake, you want to always think about putting them first, and putting your feelings to the side. The rest of the year, you can have your feelings. You can fight the fights that you want to fight, whatever. But at this time, you want to make sure that you're really paying attention to your kids and putting what's best for them forward. That might mean compromising with their other parent in terms of how you split up the holidays. I know a lot of people have parenting plans in place that have been set by lawyers and courts and all that kind of stuff. But sometimes for the good of the child, you might want to think about doing what's best for them, not necessarily following the parenting plan to the last word. So again, no judgment about anything, about anyone, but that's maybe just a piece of advice to keep in the back of your mind.
But I will say, make sure if you do stuff like that, to have that documented through a text message, so then later on, that person can be like, oh yeah, see, there's no proof that happened. I'm just throw that out there.
Yeah. So maybe be a little bit more compromising than you normally would throughout the rest of the year. The other thing is maybe having a conversation with your ex-spouse and family members, grandmas, grandpas, aunts, uncles, about gift expectations. This is not a competition. And we don't want kids to feel like they're in the middle. We don't want them to feel like one side or the other is buying their love or their attention or things like that. So you might want to try to have a united front on that kind of
on gifts and stuff.
On gifts and everything. Sorry, I thought maybe Kelly was texting us. So that's one thing. The other thing is you want to make sure that the other family that maybe isn't getting to see the kids for a certain part of the holiday or whatever doesn't make the kids feel guilty about it, right? Make your plan, stick to it. Don't let anybody feel guilty or text your kid or call your kid and say, well, why aren't you spending it with us? We really wanted to be with you. That really, really is hard for kids to navigate those types of situations. It makes them feel guilty. It makes them feel bad. It can put a real damper on the holidays and the spirit of the holidays, and things like that. The other thing is, if you can get along with your ex-spouse, think about spending the holiday together, so that your kids don't have to make a choice and nobody has to feel guilty. I have actually recently run into some people that I work with who have very amicable situations with their ex-spouses, and they choose to spend the holidays together just for that, because it's what's best for the kids. So if that's possible, certainly we know that's not always possible. Maybe that's the choice that you make, so that nobody has to decide or feel bad or left out or whatever. So those are just some tips that we have.
Also, definitely, even if you don't have the best relationship with the other parent, like encouraging your kids to go out and buy that parent a present and saying, oh, let's buy them a present or let's make them a card or whatever, is also good, because it's still showing, like, even though we have our own issues, like, you should still try to, do something nice for your other parent, because at the end of the day, that's still your parent, right? And so trying to encourage still that relationship, because I think that, like, with teens, you can ask teens, like, who do you want to spend the time? Who do you want to spend the holiday with? But for younger kids, it can be a little bit harder to make that decision. But sometimes it's also hard if you do have that parenting plan and it's like, I can't like stray from it, because I know if I do, then we can have issues in court and blah, 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 right? And so even just encouraging your kid and saying like, hey, I know you want to spend this holiday with us, but we're going to get our time this day. You're going to go with this person this day, and you'll have a lot of fun, blah, blah, blah. And even just like talking to them, even if you don't have a good relationship with them, don't put that on your kids, because at the end of the day, that's still going to be their parent. And you want to make sure that they can still have that good relationship with them without it being your issues that are affecting that relationship between the parent and the child. And even after a death in the family, I think sometimes people are just like, oh, I just want to skip it out. I didn't want to do it. But that can make things feel worse, because then you're kind of taking that joy away. That is the holiday. Sometimes we think like, oh, that person would feel bad knowing that we skipped these things. But just thinking and planning ahead can make these things a lot easier for everybody. And it can also bring kids some joy and have that sense of control and security, because hey, this is what my family's going to do for this holiday. It's something we always do, right? And just letting them know, hey, it's okay to feel sad right now. It's okay to cry. It's okay to have these feelings, because I think sometimes kids don't want to show that because they don't, again, want to ruin that holiday, right? But letting them know, hey, it's okay for us to be sad. But sometimes we have to lock it up a little bit because we know that if I'm sitting here crying and I'm like out of control and I'm super, super upset, right? Then my kids will probably feel the same way, or they might even feel scared about, what life is going to be like from now on and stuff like that. So if you need to break away, give yourself a break, have that moment to yourself that you need to also, pull yourself up a little bit and be okay throughout the holiday, because it's not just going to be hard for the kids, it's going to be hard for you too, right? And so you definitely need to make sure you're giving yourself a break and letting yourself be able to have those extreme feelings if you are feeling them. Include those family traditions that you guys might be having. So then the kid, again, has that sense of normalcy. Like, this is normal. This is what we always do during the holidays. This is something that maybe this person really enjoyed. And so maybe you can find a way to talk about that and say, hey, do you remember when, grandma did this or grandpa did that, right? And it's a way to kind of share those memories and make it still a happy moment and a good way to kind of think about that person that's not there with you. And even just doing something that they loved can also help kids deal with that grief.
All right, and a lot of this stuff we already talked about. Be open to change. Talk with your kids about your traditions. A lot of kids count on traditions every year, things that you normally do, places that you normally go, foods that you normally eat. A lot of kids really look forward to that and count on that. And if those things don't happen or if they change, it can be a little bit upsetting. Ask your kid about starting new traditions. What do they want to do, right? What would be helpful to them? And then the other thing is be realistic. And we talked a lot about this already. Make sure that you are setting up expectations for them, not making things too stringent so that they can abide by expectations. Prep kids for changes in routine. I think on any day, we know that some kids do not handle routine. What? Did you take the thing off? There we go. I think on any given day, not just during the holidays, kids thrive on routine a lot of times. That really keeps them in check, keeps them in line, keeps their anxiety at bay. So make sure that you are prepping them beforehand if there's going to be a change in routines, for sure. Make sure you take care of yourself during the holidays. That we always talk about the putting your face mask on for, what's it called on the plane? Mask?
Oh yeah, put your mask on the plane first.
To take care of yourself first. So make sure that you're doing that during the holidays, because I'm going to be honest, holidays for moms, I think, are so stressful. There's a lot of expectations that you're juggling, and you might have expectations for your own family. And sometimes it can be really too much and really stressful. And make sure to laugh. You want it to be fun. I always laugh. I always joke with my friends, like, why are the holidays so stressful? They're supposed to be joyful. They're supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be a great family time. But sometimes we just get so overwhelmed with the expectation of what should or shouldn't happen that we forget to have fun. So make sure that you are having fun, that you are laughing, that you are actually enjoying the people that you're with. And if there's people you don't enjoy being with, don't hesitate to say no to an invitation. It's okay. It's okay.
And laugh at the crazy stuff that happens,
Oh my
right?
gosh.
Sometimes when that stuff happens, all you can really do is just laugh about it.
For sure.
So we kind of talked about this earlier about when we talked about gift expectations, and when we talked, Mindy was talking about having your kids volunteer. So some other ways on helping kids to be grateful is just setting an example, pointing out generosity, like, so, hey, did you see that person did this for this person? That was really nice of them. Talk to your kids about it. What does that look like? What does that mean for you? How can you be grateful? Find fun ways to say thank you. So if you know somebody who has done something really good for you, if you have a teacher that has been a really, really good support system to your kid, or a counselor or whoever, maybe find a fun way to say thank you to them. Share the love. So again, spread it, let people know, hold that door open for people when they're walking in the store behind you, put things in perspective to people, right? Sometimes you have to let your kids know, like, hey, there's people in this country that don't have this stuff, or people in this country that live this way, and this is what you have, right? So you kind of have to be sometimes just grateful for what you do have, because your life could have been completely different if you were maybe born in a different country. And let kids choose things, get involved, make gratitude even a part of bedtime. That could even be something that maybe you do in the month of December. Like, let's say one thing that we're grateful for every night before we go to bed, and try to come up with something new instead of it always being the same thing. And making sure you give your kids credit. If you see your kids doing something that was really nice, kind of pointing that out to them and saying, hey, I noticed that you did this. Thank you for doing that. That was really nice of you. And so I think that's always important. I try to do that a lot with my 5-year-old, because I feel like sometimes he feels bad and he feels like he has to give his younger brother everything. And I tell him, I'm like, you do not have to do that. Like, that's not always something that you have to do. If it's something you took from him, yeah, you should give it back. But like, you don't have to give him, your tablet to play because his ran out of battery. So just kind of noticing when your kids are doing something that is nice, that maybe just kind of pointing that out, because it does really make them feel good, and it makes them feel special that you've actually noticed that. And so they like that. They like being noticed for doing something really nice. And like Mindy said, there's going to be places that people can definitely go and do things and share and volunteer and stuff like that. And I think that for like teenagers especially, for me, I feel like that's something that's super important, because again, you're going to go see people that are living a different life, right? If you're going to what's it called, a shelter, and you're handing out meals for the day, you're going to see people living a different lifestyle than probably you are, right? And so even just kind of talking about that on your way home from doing that is definitely going to be able to open up how your kid is feeling about that, right? And so you're going to be able to hear what they think about that, what that experience was like for them. And it can also help you figure out, okay, how else can I talk to my kids about being grateful and being appreciative of the stuff that they have. I think that with this new generation, with these kids nowadays, like, they have a lot of stuff, right? And they have, like, me and my cousins were just talking about them. Like, I hate toys. I have so many toys. Like, on their birthdays, I can't even open all their toys because they already have so much. And so I told my kids, I'm like, if you want to open more of your toys from your birthday, we're gonna get rid of some other toys. We're gonna donate these toys because you don't need all of them. You don't play with all of them. That's just the reality of it. So what can we do to still be nice and help somebody else that maybe doesn't have as much as you, and then you can still also have stuff as well. And so just kind of being open to how you can teach your kids this stuff, and even just you yourself doing it. If they see you doing stuff that's really nice for other people, it can be more helpful for them to be like, okay, well, my parents do this, so maybe I could do it too, and stuff like that.
Awesome. And before we end our conversation and open it up to questions you all might have, we just want to share some resources for you. We also know for a lot of people, kids and adults, the holidays can be a really, really hard time for a lot of different reasons. So we want to offer you some resources to reach out to if you should find that necessary. The biggest one that we always recommend to our students when we visit with them, as well as adults, is the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. And I don't know if you're familiar. I've been seeing a lot of stories on the news about this lately. Last summer, they changed the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline to 988. Very short, easy number. It used to be this big 10-digit number. I don't know about you guys. If I'm in a crisis, I can barely think of my name, much less 10 numbers in a row. So they changed it to this very short number. It is a free, anonymous, 24/7 hotline. You don't have to be suicidal to call it. You could just be feeling overwhelmed, in crisis mode, and want to talk to somebody. And so you can reach out to that. The crisis text line is a text service. So you won't actually speak with someone, but you can text with someone. RAIN is a hotline that is designated for victims of sexual violence. The Metro Trans Umbrella Group is also a resource for that population. The Trevor Project is a hotline, and the people that answer the phone there are specifically trained in issues dealing with LGBTQ plus youth. And then our CHADS numbers and our website, if you should need to reach out, we offer therapeutic services, resources, different kinds of things. Certainly if you're in a crisis, you're not gonna wanna call our number because people don't answer that 24/7. But we are a good source of resources for you if you should have questions about mental health situations. So that is our presentation. We have.
I will say,
sorry.
let me say this. I've heard a lot of kids say, "Oh, the Trevor Project, I love them." So I feel like the Trevor Project is a really good resource for a lot of kids, and I've heard a lot of people say a lot of good stuff about them. Something that we talk to kids about, well, that I mentioned during my presentation sometimes is that 988, they don't have as many people as they need to answer every single phone call. So some people's phone calls are missed just because of the fact that they don't have as much staff as they need to answer all the phone calls. But I did read it's getting better. So it's not like it's going to stay like that forever. It is getting better. But I tell them, I'm like, you need to have some backup plans, right? So if you are feeling suicidal, you can always call 911. But you can also take the kids to the emergency room. And then once they get to emergency room, they can do like a mental health assessment with them and stuff like that, and then decide, what to do from there as well. So those are just some other options for you guys as well.
One last thing I want to add. Also, if you are in a situation in your home and you feel like somebody is actively wanting to take their life, if you call 911, they will dispatch somebody to your home. And a lot of our police departments now are having officers trained in how to de-escalate mental health situations. So that's another possibility. We just want to give you as many resources as
and they don't always have somebody that's like certified like to handle those crises, but they do try to send those people out. I know I've had to call in St. Louis City before, and St. Louis City sent me one of those officers, but then they also had a person from BHR, Behavioral Health Response, with them as well, as another support and somebody who was going to like follow up after the situation as well. So I think a lot of police departments are trying to make that change and really help those situations, just because they can be really scary to respond to, especially for police officers. So I think that they're trying to do better regarding these issues.
Right. All right. So we're going to stop our presentation right now. And if you have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat, turn your screen on, or unmute yourself, and we are happy to address questions.
Me and Mindy have both been in schools lately, so we've been talking to a lot of kids.
A lot of kids.
And the kids they're excited for winter break, but they're also, some of them are stressed out about it. I think for some kids, like my husband's little cousin, she's like, oh my God, I don't know why they're having us do finals after winter break. Like, I'd rather just get it done. Like, that's the kind of person she is, right? And so not all kids are going to be like that. Some kids are like, oh, I like that we have this break before finals and stuff like that. And so just kind of, I think the main thing is knowing who your kid is, knowing what they're like. And even if you're like a school professional, knowing your kids, right? You guys are going to know these kids a lot better than what we are. And so if you notice those changes, if they're not acting as they maybe normally would, definitely question that and say, hey, this is something I noticed. What's going on? What has you feeling upset, or what has you feeling this way? I think is a great way to be able to start those conversations. Does anybody have any questions, concerns, anything they would like to share that they feel like has been helpful for them during the holidays that maybe could help someone else?
All right. If nobody has questions, We will end for this evening. We appreciate you coming on. Hopefully you have learned a thing or two to take away to make your holidays a little bit go more smoothly. If you've signed up for tonight, you will receive an email with a recording of our session in case you want to go back and rewatch a part of it or anything like that. If you want to talk to somebody at our office, you have more questions, sometimes you get off a thing like a session like this and you're like, oh, I should have asked this. You can definitely call our CHED's office and chat with someone, or they can connect you to somebody within one of our departments that could definitely answer any questions for you.
And we will have more of these all-in conversations in all next couple months, I think till June, right?
Yep, and
So
we'll
June.
be publishing that lineup right after the holidays.
Yeah, so stay tuned and see what our other topics are going to be. And so if you feel like, oh, me and my friends could really benefit from this, invite them to join too. Send them the link and have them sign up too. I think it's easy to just be able to do it on Zoom. You can do it from your house while you're eating dinner and stuff like that. And so I think it's nice and convenient to get some of this information. And then, if you have questions, you guys can always reach out.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
We hope you guys have a good night and a good holiday and stress-free. Thank you.